that's being attracted to another water molecule. So that is what is going to collapse the alveolus. Surfactant, which is actually a lipid-protein mixture coated over the alveolar wall, prevents this interaction between water molecules, prevents surface tension, prevents collapsing of the alveolar walls. It also lowers elastic recoil, makes the lung more compliant. It's not secreted until later in fetal life. So premature birth is where one of the challenges would be to keep the lungs from being collapsed. Infant respiratory distress syndrome is where there is decreased amount of surfactant, which leads to collapsing of the lungs and then the suffocation and death. That's where a surfactant given exogenously can help. The main function of the respiratory system, exchange of gases, is what we want to address next. Let's organize this into different tiers. The very first time gas exchange occurs is between the atmosphere and the lungs. That's what we call as ventilation. You bring air into the lungs, air that's rich in oxygen, while removing CO2, the air that's rich in CO2. Ventilation is organized into two parts, inspiration and expiration. Inspiration is the process by which air is brought in. Expiration is the process by which air is released. So the air that's in the alveolus, that's rich in oxygen, will allow gas exchange between alveolus and the pulmonary capillary. The oxygen that's in the pulmonary capillary reaches the heart, and from there it is supplied to systemic vessels, and systemic capillaries would take it close to the cells or tissues and deliver the structures with oxygen. And CO2 is the opposite. Cells generate CO2, it's released into systemic capillaries, it's brought to the heart, then pumped to the lungs, and in the lungs CO2 is exchanged from the pulmonary capillary into the alveolus and then released to the atmosphere. So that is the last level of gas exchange between the systemic capillaries and the tissue. One additional detail that would be helpful in discussing ventilation is Boyle's law. Boyle's law is the relationship between volume and pressure. It's an inverse relationship. It's nicely shown in here. When the volume is greater, the gas molecules have more room to move, and that's where there is less pressure. When the volume decreases, they bombard against the surface more frequently and therefore generate more pressure. So as volume decreases, there is increased pressure. As volume increases, there is decreased pressure.